All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lauren Gunn with COMTO National. I'd like to thank you guys for all joining us today for the first COMTO Executive Leadership Series webinar hosted by the Emerging Leaders Subcommittee. At this time, we'd like to get started. If you are using your computer for the audio, please make sure that your mic is muted as to limit background noise and any interruptions that could disturb other listeners. We also ask that you please mute your phones. Additionally, do not put your call on hold as it will interfere with the webinar's presenter. Should you need to take another call during the webinar, please log off. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please use the chat box located at the right-hand side of the screen. And using the drop-down box above the text box, please be sure to send a message to COMTO National. I would now like to introduce you to your moderator for today, Cyril Weems. Cyril Weems serves as the Senior Vice President of Infrastructure at Plant CRESA based in the Metro Detroit area. He specializes in capital improvement program management, ranging from transportation infrastructure to water and wastewater infrastructure. He has delivered infrastructure solutions both in the U.S. and abroad during his 20 years in the industry. Cyril is currently serving as the co-chair for the National Emerging Leaders Subcommittee. He is a member of the COMTO Michigan chapter. Cyril Weems.
Thank you, Lauren. Today is our, one of our first webinars of 2018. Our committee is committed to providing helpful coaching and career advice for all of the COMTO membership. For the most part, it's our goal to provide information that's helpful to all public and private career levels, as well as entrepreneurs. As we all know, knowledge is power, and we want to empower our COMTO family. So today, we're fortunate to have one of COMTO's own and the former chair of the Emerging Leaders Subcommittee, Dr. Kendra Taylor. Dr. Taylor has had the good fortune of having a successful engineering professional career, and she's also had the opportunity to make the transition to an entrepreneur. So Dr. Kendra Taylor is the president and CEO of KEY Efficiencies, Incorporated, a management consulting firm specializing in applying decision analytics to deliver strategies for efficient business systems. She is also founder and executive director of ICME Society, focused on teaching teams to make better life decisions based on the man or woman they hope to become. Dr. Taylor serves as editor of Inform's Editor's Cut online publication in the human trafficking and analytic, and is a former associate vice president with the leading engineering firm AECOM. She brings 15 years of experience as a management consultant with Booz Allen Hamilton and CH2M Hill. Dr. Taylor earned a PhD in industrial engineering and a Master of Science in industrial engineering from Georgia Institute of Technology and a BS in mathematics from Hampton University. Good afternoon, Dr. Taylor.
Good afternoon, Cyril. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for being with us. So, guys, what we do is, we will begin today's executive coaching series with what we call the trifecta. Basically, it's 3 questions that familiarize us with the audience with who Dr. Kendra Taylor is. So let's get started. So, talk about upbringing. Dr. Taylor, if you don't mind, could you tell us a little bit about your upbringing, how it got you basically focused on the transportation industry, and how it got you to where you are now?
Okay, sure. So my family is rather large. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California, and moved to Salt Lake City, Utah during elementary school, where my church family kind of became my extended family. And I was raised with the values of faith, education, food, and fun. And it was my education that really took me in some really great directions. So I went to Hampton University, as you mentioned in the bio, majored in math, and went on to Georgia Tech for graduate school, and came out of Georgia Tech, and I wanted to see how the math that I had learned in school and the industrial engineering I had learned was applied in business. So I took a consulting position with Booz Allen Hamilton. And while I was there, I got an opportunity to work on about 25 different projects. And about half of them were projects in the transportation practice. I kind of migrated to the transportation practice about halfway through my time at Booz Allen. And it was really, I was still doing industrial engineering work, process improvement work. My biggest transportation project was with South Florida RTA. It was about a 3-year project where they were rolling out a new smart card fare collection system. And I basically got to see the entire process from beginning to end for a transportation system implementation, and was able to contribute a lot during that time. So that's kind of how I got my start in transportation, from a process improvement perspective. And over the years, I've been fortunate to work with a number of transportation clients that range all 5 modes of transportation. So in this most recent opportunity, I got to work with AECOM as their Gulf Coast business unit leader, and touch all aspects of transportation. So that's a little bit about my upbringing and how I got into transportation.
Yeah, well, thank you for helping us to understand that. It looks like you've had almost a springboard career, going from coming in and moving around within those different departments, and also finishing up as a associate vice president. And the good thing you mentioned there was fun. I think we all want to have fun in our lives, and if that was part of who you were taught to be, and being in the transportation industry, is definitely good to hear that. Thanks for that. Now, the next question that we have is a fun fact. So, what is one thing that not many people know about you?
So most people don't know that I still run track competitively. My favorite event is the 100-meter dash. And in 2015, I represented Team USA in the World Masters track meet in Lyon, France. And I made it to the semifinals in the 100-meter dash. So my goal is to hit 11.9 seconds in the 100-meter dash this season. And my first track meet of the season is coming up this Saturday, so I'm very excited.
Yeah, you're correct. That's a really interesting fact. And really, it's good to see that you're still competing, not necessarily just in the engineering world or even in the entrepreneurial world, but also keeping those personal goals going and keeping that balance. So again, thanks for sharing that. And our final question is a little bit about just background. So you kind of talked a little bit about your upbringing. You kind of tied it into kind of your competitiveness and some fun facts. But I mean, you've also gone from the private sector into entrepreneurial world, which a lot of us haven't all experienced, but it's definitely a goal for some folks, and some folks don't necessarily want to be there. But I mean, you've made that transition. So how did you get your start as an entrepreneur? I mean, I know it has to tie back to a little bit of your recent career and all, but how do you get your start as an entrepreneur?
Well, I would say most likely my road as an entrepreneur, it really started like most little girls with selling Girl Scout cookies. That probably was my start as an entrepreneur. Both my parents are entrepreneurs, and over the years, I've just enjoyed the challenge of providing a product or a service that people would value enough to purchase. So I've had several different experiences and forays into entrepreneurship of different types. And it's just an exciting and thrilling opportunity. So that's just a little bit about my background. I'll tell some more about my specific, more recent foray in entrepreneurship a little later, I think.
Thanks for that. So let's do this. Let's transition into what we consider is our, our day in the life. I keep missing this thing, I believe. All right. So our day in the life of Dr. Kendra Taylor here. So this is our inside view, of a business owner. So just if you could, we look at things that are, outside the box. So in thinking outside the box, what are some misconceptions about starting a firm?
So we don't know what we don't know when we think about starting a firm. And it's really helpful to have friends, mentors, and family members who have successfully transitioned from working for their employer to starting their own firm and maybe working with their employer. And talking with some of those friends and mentors, it helps to alleviate some of those misconceptions, whatever they may be. So everyone's path is different. But I think the biggest misconception is probably we think that it won't work, and so we shouldn't try it. We see successful entrepreneurs who are multimillionaires, and we think, they started earlier than me, or they have different skill sets than I do, or I'm not good at that. And so we think, well, I'm probably not going to be a Bill Gates, so I shouldn't try it. But that's not necessarily the case. You don't have to be, everyone else. You can be yourself. And we also have plenty of comeback kids who started a firm and after a few years decided to take a position as an employee again. And there's nothing wrong with that. Entrepreneurship doesn't have to be a door that you walk through where once you walk through it, you can never return or come back. And I can think of several people who have returned and are doing very well back in industry as an employee, really supporting the growth and development of the various firms that we have in our communities.
I agree with you on that. I'm actually one of those people who went to have my own firm and then came back and really had a seamless fit back into it and didn't feel like a failure. It was a time to make a change. In the same item here, as far as out of the box, do you think that one of the misconceptions in either preparing or moving to entrepreneurship is that some folks feel like they have to get to the CEO level or a higher management level in order to make that move? Have you seen that at all?
I do. I have seen that. Sometimes it's kind of like a double dutch where you kind of want to see if you step in, but then you have a hesitation, so you don't step in, and then you want to you try again. Maybe next year you think you might want to step in. A couple of rotations of the rope have gone by before you actually step in. It has to feel right. You definitely don't want to move prematurely, but at the same time, you have to move at some point. And I don't think any entrepreneur steps freely into risk. I think that what you can do is position yourself as best you can to avoid some of the risks involved, or to mitigate, I should say, some of the risks involved, and go for it.
Okay, definitely good advice. So, as you say, go for it. Going for it sometimes can have the goods and the bad, right? So, what are the benefits and challenges to being an entrepreneur?
Well, I think the number one benefit most people see is that you are in control of your time. And another benefit I think people always point to is the opportunity for significant financial reward. You also are the key influencer, decision maker within your company, and kind of the buck stops with you. And so you are in a great position of power within your company at that point. You also have a benefit of learning, a significant amount of learning that comes as you go day in, day out, and you are challenging yourself to grow and to build your business. both personally and professionally. And then there's an opportunity to stretch outside of your comfort zone, and that requires faith, it requires humility, and it requires courage. So the opportunity to grow in those areas, I think, are benefits. Now, some of the challenges, like I mentioned, you do take on some financial risks. And so you still have bills to pay and other obligations with your time you're responsible for. And you have to budget your time and your money accordingly. And that can be a challenge. In addition, just the day in, day out dynamics of running a business, you have to set up systems in order to manage human resources, your finance, accounting, your IT, the operations of your business, and that may be something you haven't experienced before. So it's a pretty steep learning curve because in most of our organizations, we function in one department of the organization. And we don't really get an opportunity to take a leadership role in multiple departments within an organization. And so when you have your own business, you have the opportunity to experience success and develop processes, procedures, systems for the various departments within your organization. And that can be a challenge.
All right. Well, you definitely hit on some things that I think a lot of entrepreneurs have encountered. It sounds to me like you understand it really, really well, and we know you'll continue to do well based on having that knowledge. So, that's the good and that's the bad. And then you have some folks, so if we stay in the entrepreneurial framework or discussion area, there are some folks that are joining us today that are thinking about maybe, being an entrepreneur as well. So what would be, some tips for them to take away from this? When you look at leaders, emerging leaders, what are some tips for brighter future as a new entrepreneur? So folks are thinking about that. What would you suggest that they think about?
Well, the number one thing I would say is that building business is all about relationships, and networking and delivering value to clients are the bread and butter of entrepreneurship. So you've probably heard it before, it's not who you know, but it's who knows you and likes you, because people do business with the people that they know and they like. So I would say some tips would be, don't be afraid to share your challenges. If people always see you as a champ, then sometimes there can be a level of distrust there. So don't be afraid to share your challenges in certain circumstances, because that really makes you more personable and people can relate to you and build relationship with you that way. Also, pointing back to building a business being about relationships, when meeting people, I would suggest trying to listen for what they care about and then think about how you can help. So many times we have very surface level conversations when we each within us have very deep thoughts and passions and dreams and hopes for the future and our families and our communities. And when we can relate to one another on that heart-to-heart level for what really matters to us, then that's another opportunity for us to build relationships that can be business relationships. And the last thing I would say is to tune into your passion and what you care about. In addition to listening for what others care about, know what you care about, and then be willing to share that with other people. So, for example, I realized years ago that I am passionate about helping teenagers improve their decision-making skills. And I also became concerned when I learned of this sex trafficking issue in Atlanta. So outside of my work hours, I launched KEY Efficiencies, and I began a research initiative to develop a curriculum to teach teens to make better life decisions based on the man or woman they hope to become. I was able to apply some of the tools that I learned in grad school in the decision sciences for that curriculum. And I've gone on to pilot the program, write a research paper that'll be published this summer, and I've won a contract to deliver the program at local community centers. So I'm following and pursuing my passion. And there's a saying that you can do well by doing good, meaning you can make a living doing something that is beneficial and that makes you feel good. I've also developed an online version of the program, and it's called the IC Society. And it all started with me tuning into my passion. So those are the tips I would give for leaders who are looking at perhaps moving into entrepreneurship.
I actually like those tips, and when you mention really all three of those items, and I know we were really looking at it from an entrepreneurial standpoint, I can actually see that being applicable to all levels, where folks who are either at the early stages in their career, managers, or even at the C-suite level, where they could do those same things, share their challenges, listen to the others, and make sure they know what they care about, and then tune in their own passion to help them get their careers aligned to where they want to go. So I think those are wonderful tips for the entrepreneur, and also again applicable to all levels. So I think you cover that really well. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's go from the day in the life to kind of the career development side. The tips that you would think sharing for building a successful career. And one of those first questions would be really what it takes. So how can emerging leaders prepare themselves for when opportunity knocks? I mean, it's going to come at some point, and 2018 is kind of the early part of the year. People are planning on where they want to go, what they want to do, and if it shows up tomorrow, what should they be thinking about?
That's a great question. I would say awareness that opportunity will show up, that gives us hope. And when we find ourselves in positions where we're working in a position or function, or we have some tasks that we've been assigned to do that are not really where our passions lie, or not really what we're interested in, just knowing that opportunity will knock is something that can give us hope. So I like to say, imagine knowing that a gift is coming. And if there's anything that you would do differently to prepare to receive it, start doing that now. I once heard the advice to act as if today is the first day on your job. We can all probably relate, on the first day of your job, you want to make a good impression, put your best foot forward, you want to do your best. But then sometimes after we've been in a position for a number of years and we've seen some things and maybe had some disappointments or some frustrations, we stop appreciating the job as we did on our first day. So one piece of advice would be to act as if today is the first day on your job, and do the things that you would be doing on that day in terms of your attitude toward your job. And to use a tool and process improvement, assess what you need to stop doing, think about what you need to start doing, and what you need to continue doing. So the stop doing, the start doing, and the continue doing. And that can help to be prepared for when opportunity knocks. And then lastly, some questions to ask would be, number one, what are the key actions that you take to put your best foot forward, or that you need to take to put your best foot forward? And that can go back to the start doing. And then what are the success factors that let you know that things are going well? So are there things is there feedback that you tend to get? Are there accolades? Are there verbal or nonverbal cues that let you know that things are going well with your work? Are there some performance metrics that you hit, and that lets you know that's a success indicator that things are going well at work? Are there relationships or people that you're interacting with or getting feedback from that are letting you know that things are going well? And then a third question is, what are the warning signs that let you know that you're heading off track? So it might be just some, negative self-talk or negative thinking, or, spending too much time at lunch, or maybe even talking negatively about work or about coworkers or about various experiences. Whatever the warning signs are that let you know you're kind of losing that passion for your job or losing that desire to make a good first impression, those are things to pay attention to. And then the fourth one, I would say, what are the motivators? So what are the things that you do personally and professionally that inspire you to get back on track? It might be listening to a certain motivational speaker or reading a motivational book or spending some time reflecting on things that motivate you, and having an understanding and an awareness. Again, I think awareness is the key word here. That helps you to know what those key actions, those success indicators, those warning signs, and those motivators are for you as you're preparing for when opportunity knocks.
Wow. I was preach that was great. I got a lot of got a lot of nuggets out of that. That was really good information. The one portion where you covered, just the assessment, starting and continue doing things. I think that's something that, we should all be doing. And in reality, I don't think we do enough. I think that allows us to potentially keep ourselves on our toes. And like you said, being prepared for the opportunity. So those are listening to the call. This is recorded because I know she gave us a lot of information right there. And we'll be able to share that with you, or you can ask some questions towards the end. But moving forward, you covered a little bit of the next question here. And you can decide if you want to go into depth on this one or not, or you can kind of go with what you provided already. But, success keys, and we have keys kind of capitalized to tie into your company name. But, what are those indicators that career moves are getting you closer to launching either your own business or getting to that spot where you're trying to get to, but in your case, launching your own business? So you covered that a little bit, but if you don't mind, if you can expand a little bit on that.
Absolutely. And thank you for the acknowledgement of the keys for KEY Efficiencies. So business is founded on relationships, as I mentioned, and being successful in business is not just about relationships, but it's, from a practical perspective, it's based on receiving payment for delivery of a quality product or service. And that, within that statement, I'm going to break that down for some questions that help you to know that you're getting closer to launching your own business or moving in that next step. So I have 6 questions. One question that I would suggest is, how are my relationships within my current organization? So sometimes we can have some very positive relationships with people who are very supportive of us and want to see us grow just genuinely because they care about us and want to see us grow. We can also have some toxic relationships within our organization. And there are some things that we can do to improve relationships, and there are some things that we can't do. But in all cases, of course, we can treat others well. So I would say look at the relationships that you have within your organization, and then also the relationships you have outside of your organization, but in the transportation industry. And then lastly, your relationships even outside of the transportation industry, because there are so many industries that intersect with the transportation industry. So as those relationships, the number and the quality of those relationships grow, then your business success, the likelihood of success in your business will grow, because as I said, business is based on relationships. The second I would say is, could my work quality improve? I mentioned that business is based on receiving payment for delivery of a quality product or service. So the question is, could my work quality improve? currently where I am in my current organization, and in what ways could my work quality improve? And then, do I have the discipline to improve my work quality even if no one asks me to? And discipline is key, because when you're an entrepreneur, you're responsible for the work quality that you provide, and there's no one that you can really blame. It falls really squarely on your shoulders. And as you move closer to that next level, it's important for you to know and be convinced that you are really providing a quality work product, and one that your clients appreciate. The third is, do I understand the business aspect of my job? And by that, I mean how my work is contributing to the revenue and how my work incurs expense for the organization. Because as a business owner or entrepreneur, it's a business, and you have to understand the revenue and the expenses and the accounting and finances that goes into running an organization. And so when there are opportunities to gain further experience, exposure, or training on the business aspects of your work, I definitely say take advantage of those. Another question, the fourth I would say, is have I had a profit and loss or budget responsibility for a project, department, or group, et cetera? And I know for me, the answer to that question in 2016, the answer was no for the profit and loss responsibility. And that was something that I wanted. I'd had project management experience, but having profit and loss responsibility was something that I really wanted to gain. And so I reached for and got that experience within my organization. The fifth question I would say is, do I have 12 to 24 months of savings to launch a business? Because there may be opportunities that seem to be available for you while you're still working for your employer, but because there's so much risk involved and you don't know how long payments will take, or invoicing, or so on and so forth, it's good to have a cushion, a savings that you can rely on during that period when you're launching your business. And then the last question I would say is, have I done research to know whether someone would pay for the good or service that my business would provide? Because you have to understand the competitive landscape, but you also have to understand what you're providing that is of value to people to the point that they would pay for it. So those are the questions that I would say. There may be opportunities to work on your business outside of company time. So we typically work about 40 hours a week. But if we worked 80 or even 60 hours, we'd accomplish in 6 or 9 months what would have taken a year. So it's definitely possible to work and put in the 40 hours a week with your employer, and then on your own time work outside. And I just want to also throw in, it's a great idea to pay attention to your employee handbook and the legal documentation that you signed when you took on the role in the position, to make sure that whatever business you're looking at launching does not conflict with any of the agreements that you have with your employer.
That's key information. No, thank you for that, Kendra. It's good to see that, you know, these points that you're bringing up, you know, are one, good guidelines and tips, but two, you know, it continues to show kind of the ethical side of making sure that, you know, when you do look at moving from, you know, an employer to self-employed, or being an employee to being self-employed, the things that you have to think about. And, you know, it's a lot, but it's not insurmountable where you can't do it. And as I continue to listen to you, I always am intrigued that these are not only, you know, a few things are, but they're not all only related to starting your own business. I mean, the first 4 items that you brought up, you know, the relationships and quality and, you know, having profit and loss responsibility, those are things that can help you to grow in your careers, within your companies if you're not looking to start your own business. And those type of things, they add value to who you are, and which in turns add value to your place in the company. So, these things that you're providing as far as career advice, are definitely widespread, and again, they reach all of those members that we have at COMTO here. So appreciate that, the outlook
Absolutely.
on that. So going from the career development side and moving into kind of the one thing a lot of us think about is kind of the work-life balance. It's for the most part an area that a lot of us don't always, how would I say, focus on, the overall work-life balance side of it. So finding that balance, within the busy schedules, finding a balance within what do you need to do at work and outside of work, and how do all those things work together. It really takes some effort, and then once you become an entrepreneur, really your time is really your biggest asset, and how do you balance between all of that. So, on a wonderful journey to become successful in any field, you need to find that balance and make that important. So family, work, spirituality, community, etc., all have to weigh in, and they all have their demands on your time. So, with that being said, finding that right mix. So how does, active involvement in civic organizations, such as COMTO, improve leadership skills and entrepreneur skills, and then, spending that time in these organizations and giving up that time, I guess, for these organizations, how does that all, play into the mix of success?
Well, I think in general, the concept of work-life balance is it's a concept, and when some people think of work-life balance, they think of it in terms of each day you delegate or appropriate the correct number of hours to work and the correct number of hours to family and the other activities that you have during your day. And when you're able to do that, then you have succeeded. You have achieved the goal for the day. But there are various demands that come up where, for example, if there's a death in the family or an emergency in the family that requires family time, then family rises. And the amount of time that you have for anything other than family, it drops significantly. Whereas if there's a significant deadline for work and family is fine, then family can fall back for that period of time while you focus on the deadline at work. And so I find that the work-life balance piece is not necessarily something that is day in, day out consistent, but it has ebbs and flows, and the priorities rise based on what is going on at the time. And it's good to have a general sense of how you get your balance in a typical day. But I think it's okay to know that every day is not going to be the same, and that that kind of tug of war might move significantly in one direction versus the other. But in terms of involvement in COMTO, I think COMTO is a great organization for developing leadership and entrepreneurial skills. I know that COMTO advocates for both better employees in transportation and for leveling the playing field in business. So COMTO is a significant advocate for small businesses and minority-owned businesses within the transportation industry. And by building relationships within COMTO, we have access to our local COMTO family. We have access to some of the best world-class mentors across the nation. We also have opportunities for professional growth. So I encourage everyone to be active on at least one COMTO committee at either the chapter level or the national level. I know for me personally, over the last 8 years that I've been affiliated with COMTO, it has helped me tremendously in my leadership skills and development, and also as an entrepreneur.
Good. Yeah, I can agree with that as well. So yeah, I think that is a good mix, and also there is a benefit in being a part of civic organizations. Although that's time away from other things, I think it's definitely has its benefits. So when we talk about really keeping a balance, I mean, there are a lot of things that we can use to help us, tools, so to speak, that can help us and to maintain that balance. So based on, your opportunity to do or use certain tools, are there technologies or apps you recommend for managing time, which is one of most of us, it's probably our biggest struggle, and professional relationships? I mean, or do you have any tips there?
Sure. I have 3 apps that I like, that I use pretty regularly. The first one is, it's actually an app for fitness, but it can be used for your day-to-day schedule. It's called Seconds Pro. It's free. It's a free app, Seconds Pro. And
is that
you
seconds
can
with
create,
an S?
Yes, SECONDS, PRO. You can create basically almost like a timeline for your daily schedule, or for your morning routine, or for your evening routine, where you want to there's some things that you want to typically do or take care of. And that kind of actually goes back to the work-life balance, because you can allocate time for different activities, whether it be reading or studying or spending time doing, your physical fitness or whatever it is. You can set a schedule where it will count down. It's a timer, so it'll count down for you how much time you have left to complete that schedule. And I might like it because I'm used to being timed on the track as a sprinter, and so I'm used to kind of racing against the clock. But Seconds Pro is one that I like. A second one I would say is Routinely. It's called Routinely, like the word routine with an LY at the end. It's also free. And it's an app that helps you develop new habits. So basically, you put in the habits that you want to develop, and then you have an opportunity to mark off whether or not you are doing that habit on whatever basis, daily or hourly or whatever you want to do. The third one that I like is called Stand Up. It's one word, Stand Up. And it reminds you to take a break from work for a few seconds throughout the day. So it can automatically be set to pop up on your cell phone every 15, 20, 30, however many minutes you set it for. And you can put any kind of a message that will be read on your phone to remind you to stand up, so that you can become less sedentary. So those are some for managing time that I like. And then for building relationships, I think one of the great ways to build relationships is being able to provide information and resources that are related to the interests that you share with others. So one way to do that is by sending or emailing an article or news story or any information that you come across on a daily basis. So having news apps like the Associated Press, or having Google Alerts send alerts to you that you could then share with others on certain topics. And then also the local and the business news apps are helpful for you to stay abreast of what's going on, because when you're in the know, you can provide knowledge and information for other people. And that can be very valuable for building relationships.
I was actually taking notes, so it took me a little bit to respond. So no, I think no, that was some good information. I'm not as tech savvy as I probably should be, and hearing some of these apps, or even the one that the stand up, taking a break, I think we get to our desk and we grind away and don't realize we probably haven't stood up or spoken to a person sometimes in the whole day because we're just working at our task. So it's good to see. I'm sure there are many apps, but good to see that you've experienced some of these and been able to share them with our listeners today. So, I thank you for, covering, all that you did today, and, really appreciate, the candidness in some of the information provided, and also the thoughtfulness to, and the preparedness to be able to have a lot of this available for us and share with the COMTO family. Again, our goal is to make sure that, COMTO continues to grow, and the people involved in COMTO continue to grow, and anything that we can do as an organization, especially from an emerging leader standpoint, to provide helpful information is what we want to do. And I can clearly say that you've done that today, provide a lot of helpful information, a lot of nuggets, a lot of really just information to help all of us, including myself, to be successful going forward. So really want to thank you for spending the time with us, and really want to just ask that if you could just hold fire and see if we have any questions that come in, to see if anyone has anything specific they want to ask you. And for the most part, just thank you again for spending time with us today and your information.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
Great. So as we look to see if we have any additional questions coming in, are there any things like books right now that you may be reading that's supporting your growth in your career?
Actually, yes. Given that, today is the last day of Black History Month, so I have this wonderful book, On Her Own Ground, which tells the story of Madam C.J. Walker and her entrepreneurial journey. It's an autobiography of her, and it's something that has been encouraging to me. Also, I am reading the book, The Tycoon, which tells the story of the major families that built the industrial age. We are in a point of innovation in technology and STEM, with an appreciation for STEM that's really growing in our inner cities. And so we have an opportunity to really leverage something great in our society. And I think it's interesting to go back and hear about what the Westinghouses and the Vanderbilts and the Carnegies and the Fords did, and how they were able to leverage the times and how they saw the times in order to really make something great. And a lot of the things that they did, were related to transportation. Vanderbilt with the railroad, Ford with the automobile, Carnegie with steel and bridges, and infrastructure. So it's interesting to understand and know kind of what those earlier industrial entrepreneurs did and how they saw problems and approached things. So those are two books that I'm reading now.
Now, what was the name of the first one regarding Madam C.J. Walker?
That's On Her Own Ground, and it's written by Alelia Bundles, Bundles.
Okay. All right. Well, so since we're talking about books, a lot of us, read informational books, but we also like motivational books. Are there any one or two, or do you have any favorite motivational books that you think others can benefit from?
Well, let's see. A friend of mine just came out with a book called Heroes Wanted, which is a motivational book about kind of the same sorts of things that I was alluding to or mentioning earlier around being the hero in whatever story, whatever crisis, or whatever situation that you think needs to be fixed or addressed in our society, and not being afraid to go ahead and take that on and stand up and be the hero in that situation. So that book is Heroes Wanted. It's written by a good friend of mine named Rodney Bullard, and he is the vice president of the Chick-fil-A Foundation.
Oh,
So,
wow.
You'll probably be hearing more of him in the next couple of years. But I think that's a pretty inspirational book, and his story is inspirational as well.
Nice. And then lastly, well, not lastly, but the next question would be, who are your most important mentors, or who do you consider your most important mentors? Sometimes we have mentors that we've never met. So that's, just based on who they are, what they say, what they do. And then some are, dear friends of ours. So in that case, or either case, who are your most important mentors?
Well, Rodney Bullard is a mentor for me. I think, and I've definitely admired Bill Washington and Keith Parker in the transportation industry for their leadership and mentorship, kind of from afar, but even in some cases up close. I like to think of mentors that are also my peers. So, Sorrel, I consider you a mentor as well. India Birdsong, who I've served with on the Emerging Leaders Subcommittee for a while, I consider to be a mentor. Even though our career paths are different, we're both professional women with and significant interest in transportation. So I like to think of mentors both as my peers and then also as kind of those people who are a few levels ahead, years of experience, light years ahead in terms of their career progression and development.
No, I think those folks you mentioned, I know a few of them, and I think those are great folks. And I think you continue to, I guess I'll say, amaze me that you tie it back to not only just personal or entrepreneurship, you continue to put things in perspective where they're applicable to all of the folks, at all levels at COMTO. And you mentioned kind of the peer mentors, not only just the I guess you would call it the higher level mentors. And a lot of us don't realize that we have folks that are sitting right next to us that really could be mentors to us in some ways, not necessarily our full career development, but things that they're doing that allow us to see better ways we can do things, or really different ways we can do things. And again, I just want to thank you for kind of keeping that, that cycle alive and active in your conversation today. It's been really, really good and really, really helpful. And at this point, we don't have a lot more questions, and also some folks might want a few minutes back for their time. It is lunchtime, and I think, in paraphrasing it or tying it to analogy, it's been a good lunchtime for me, as you've kind of fed a lot of information to us. So again, thank you very much, and we won't hold you any longer. I don't know, Lauren, is there anything that you need to do from a national level hospitality? I'm sorry, not hospitality, a housekeeping perspective, and if there are some, I'll also turn it over to you. But I don't want to leave without saying thank you, Kendra, or Dr. Taylor, for your time, for your efforts, for sharing information with all of us. And also thank you to the Emerging Leaders Subcommittee, which are listed on the screen at this point. Won't run through them all. Do have a co-chair, Aisha Eccleston, and she's actually in travel today and wasn't able to support the conversation here. But thank you to all the folks who helped put this together, and thanks to everyone that made the effort to attend and hear what we had to share with you. So thank you very much, Kendra. And Lauren, if there's nothing, we'll go ahead and end the webinar.
All right, there's only one thing for me. The webinar will be available on the COMTO website, hopefully by the end of the day today.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone, and everyone have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, take care, bye-bye.